I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our county executive, David Crowley. David is not just the Milwaukee County executive, he's also a true friend of the Friendship Circle. Him, his wife, and children have gotten involved over the last couple of years. Yes, it started off because, actually, it was long before you became county executive. But it doesn't hurt that you got elected. So thank you for being a friend for so many years. Thank you for being a friend for so many future years, and I hope I can say that. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here. And I'm curious to hear from you when you share, why did you say yes to coming?
All right. Well, thank you so much. And can we give ourselves a round of applause for being here? I think it's important to acknowledge yourselves in being in this space. So I'm going to ask the last question that he had answered, which is why I answered the call to be here. And that's because I feel like I'm amongst family. When I think about what Friendship Circle does and do every single day, it really fits within the mission and vision of Milwaukee County, looking to become the healthiest county in the state of Wisconsin. And I think a lot of the times when we look at health, we always think about the physical health. But health is much more than that. Health is about where do we live, how we're able to put money in our pocket, how we have access to education and to healthcare access. And when I look at what the Friendship Circle does, I know that many people may say, well, they're helping out individuals with who may have disabilities or may have a mental health diagnosis. Let's be quite honest, they're helping out everybody with varying abilities. Whether you have abilities or not, they're helping those who may not understand the stigma and helping to build relationships with individuals in this community. But more importantly, it's really about how we continue to build community. When I see Friendship Circle, that means that we're all looking inward and looking towards one another when it comes down to how we move our community forward. And that's why I wanted to answer this call and be here, particularly talking about fundraising. As a politician, I have to fundraise all the time. And I will tell you that it's a little bit different, because when they give to me, they don't get a tax write-off. But what's important about, and the reason why I want to talk about, particularly as an elected official, is that there are times where I call individuals that I absolutely don't know. But it's critically important that I'm asking them for dollars to understand how they fit within the mission and vision of not only what I want to do for this community, but what this community also believes in. And so as you all embark on this journey to help fundraise for the Friendship Circle, understand that there's no better person to ask for money than yourselves. Those who are connected to the solutions are directly impacted by the issues that are at hand are also the ones who should be directly close to the solutions and solving those problems. And so if we want to save an organization like Friendship Circle, if we want to continue to see organizations like this move forward, it's really about how we get our family, our friends, and those who may not understand how they are indirectly impacted by this organization, why they need to give. And so what I'm asking, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, don't be afraid to be a little bit vulnerable. It is your story on why you're connected to this organization that's going to help bring people into the fold on why they need to give. Because when you think about it, whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, your aunt, or it could be your doctor, right? It could be a teacher, and they may be working with your young person, but knowing that how special that person is, they probably wonder how you do it every single day. Because I know it's not easy being in many of your shoes, but those who are around you wonder, how can we support you? And you have to let them know that there are organizations like Friendship Circle that are out there supporting individuals every single day. And so when you make those calls, a lot of people will say, well, I don't feel comfortable asking for money. Neither do I. And it can feel really weird asking somebody you don't know for money, or even asking those you do know for money. But if you were hungry, would you ask for food? I was always told a closed mouth never gets fed. So if we want to feed this organization, we're going to have to speak up and open our mouths and ask for people to give. And so I want to give you a few tips and tricks that we use, that I particularly use when I am doing fundraising. And one, before you make your ask, especially if you don't know this person, try to develop a relationship. Let them know why you're calling. Let them know what your relationship is to Friendship Circle, but let them understand the impact that this organization is having on you. And when you make that ask, you ask them, how can they relate? What is their connection? Have they ever been connected to an organization or to an issue that mattered as much as friendship circle matters to you? And then you may see a suggested amount on there, and I see your call list, and there's a lot of times, what we say is that you may not be comfortable asking somebody for $500, but we call that a hard ask. So the best way to give a hard ask, when you give that $500 ask, you know what you should do? Anybody?
Say you good.
Huh?
Say you good.
I couldn't hear you.
Say you already good.
You'll do it also.
Oh, you were saying, you can say, man, we can talk about it, but when you make the hard ask, the first thing you have to do is shut up. You know why? Everybody hates awkward silence. And so as the person making the ask, don't break the awkward silence. And if you are giving and matching, that's great. But when you give, because we are talking about being able to match every gift up until January 30th, you want to let those individuals know that. And particularly about that deadline, because people look at those deadlines as a reason why I need to give now. And never leave the ask too open-ended. And there are going to be people who may say, you know what, I can't do that. And you can say thank you and hang up. Or I would encourage you and say, well, I appreciate that. Can you give a smaller amount? Because you don't want to leave anything on the table. A lot of folks want to give to something. They want to support something. And there's only one reason why they do not support it. And that number one reason is because they don't ask. One of the things, particularly in the Black community, we always talk about the African American church. The Baptist church has a great way of fundraising. And we figured out what that secret sauce is. I went to my pastor one day and I asked him, I said, what's the secret? And he told me, never stop asking.
He said it, not me.
Never stop asking. Because people want to give. And sometimes people need that extra push. I will tell you that sometimes people don't give to me because they want to give to me. Sometimes people give to me because they're paying me to stay out of their voicemail. Because you're constantly asking. There's nothing wrong with the word no, just like there's nothing wrong with failure. Failure is only bad when we don't learn from it. And nothing is wrong with the term no, something that we have to get used to. We tell our kids that a lot of the times. But it's important to understand that we can accept that, but that does not mean that they will not give in the future. And so don't be afraid to ask, because you're actually letting folks know what's the most important things to you when you do make those asks. And so keep doing what you're doing and keep telling the story, because the story isn't the amount of coffees that's sold. The story isn't the great baked goods you all sell, and they are great. But it's the impact that you're making on individuals and families, young people, young adults, and even older adults, helping them to not only build dignity within themselves and have confidence, but teaching them the skills to be able to be independent. So when we transition, we're not afraid of what our children will be able to do once we are gone. And I will tell you that, particularly for Milwaukee County, we believe in that. One of the things that we did earlier last year, we've been focusing on affordable housing. We had an opportunity to partner with Franklin, City of Franklin. And this will be the first affordable housing development opportunity that we've ever done in Franklin, where we're going to be building houses, particularly for adults who have been diagnosed with autism. Because you have to make sure that we're helping out individuals throughout their entire lifespan. And so I want you to know that we are partners. And the work that you're doing is not just benefiting the Friendship Circle, but it's benefiting this entire county. Because if we're going to be healthy, we can't do it alone. We've got to do it in partnership. And I'm glad to be here doing it in partnership with folks like yourselves. I'm not sure how much more you want me to share, but I'm willing to take any questions, comments, and things with whatever you may have related to fundraising or Milwaukee County. But truly, I just want to say thank you because y'all are the unsung heroes for one of the most vulnerable populations that we have in our community that so many people try to throw away or hide. We just think it's extremely important for us to continue to lock arms and lift up this community and make sure that folks understand how we have a responsibility to this community throughout our entire lifespan. So thank you.
Any questions before we move on?
Hi.
Hello.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I've been in fundraising for several years now, and I feel like I got some great tips that I hadn't maybe thought of that way. So thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project in Franklin with the housing, or is it really early in the...
It's still early in its stages, so it's a partnership. I think the organization is called Crocus. That is in partnership with, I'm not sure exactly how many units that we'll have, but what's unique is that it's not just going to be building that housing, but partnering up with that nonprofit who also helps to provide the supportive services for those who are going to be living in that houses. And so for us, it's not just that we understand how much the brick and mortar is needed, but it's also about how we wrap around all the other services around those individuals to make sure that they're on the right trajectory. I mean, one thing I do want to give one quick tip is that when we talk about the hard ask and shutting up is probably the hardest thing to do. So if you like hard candies, when you make your hard ask, just put it in your mouth and that will stop you from talking.
It's the number one key in negotiation. You ask what you're looking for and you're silent.
Mm-hmm.
And you will often get what you're asking for.
So
And I have one more question, which is just, over the last maybe 3-4 years, how have you seen the conversation around mental health change in our communities?
Sometimes it feels like we're in a rut, like we're running on a treadmill because we haven't really made any progress. But honestly, we are making a lot of progress when it comes down to mental health. I think that, there's a lot that has touched a lot of people recently. One, I just think about, Jonathan Brostoff was one of my best friends. Grew up with him, known him for the past 20 years since we was in high school, and understanding how his story has touched so many people. And thinking about the people that he impacted, how everybody couldn't have understood that he could have had his own mental health challenges. And I think right now, we have to take advantage of the opportunity when so many people feel like we're living in uncertain times. I'm kind of reminded of a Dr. King quote that I've been using all day, every day since I've learned about it, which is that we must accept finite disappointment, but never give up infinite hope. And while there's a lot of different challenges and reasons why we should lose hope, when I look around this room, this is the reason why I do what I do. And there are so many people that we're connected to that helps to push us every single day. And so it's important to understand that, we have to surround ourselves around those who are going to continue to promote love, continue to promote inclusivity, because this is what it is, right? And I think that people forget that it's not just about one group of people, but it's about all people and how we bring everybody together. And so I think the conversation is we're breaking down the stigma around mental health. We still have a lot to do when it comes down to making sure that they have access to the services that they absolutely need. And particularly when it comes down to like opioids and the addiction issue that we have been seeing in this community, we really have to figure out ways to break down the stigma. We have to put mental health on that track of parity with physical health. We don't treat cancer patients and treat them like they wear it on their sleeve. So why do we do the same thing with people who may have a disability or may have their own mental health issue? So, thank you.
So I had a couple questions. You touched on this a little bit, but maybe you can expand on it a little bit more. So in front of me, I'm looking at Lindsay's book, and she already filled out all the people that she's going to call.
Yes.
But that's rare. A lot of times people are afraid to call their family, or afraid to call their friends, or afraid to call their colleagues, or someone they know, because they don't want to mix. So that's one half of the question. How do we encourage them that even though, yes, your family friend, it doesn't have to be awkward, you can do it anyways, and then still still be friends. Then the other side of the question, some people say, I tell people like, come to the call center, which we're going to talk about soon, and call strangers, call people who have supported a friendship circle in the past. People say, oh, I'm not going to, I'll call my friends, but I can't call other people. Any words of inspiration for those two groups?
Well, if you've never done fundraising calls first, and you're thinking about volunteering in the call center, practice by calling your friends and family first, right? They're the ones who rarely tell you no in the very beginning, and when they do tell you no, it makes it a little easier to accept no from those strangers. But when you're calling strangers, right, and I think one of the things that you have to stress the most when you're in that call center is that you're calling people who's given before. And I think it's important that even before you even make your ask and introduce what you have, why you're doing it, the first thing that you should do if they've given is you thank them. And you give them your story on the impact that this organization has made on you, because that's what they want to hear and see. They probably see, they see Levy, and they probably don't want to hear from him because they're like, man, we know what you're going to tell us, right? But they want to hear directly from those who have been impacted from this organization. And when you can tell them the story and thank them before making that ask, that means the world. And don't be afraid, don't assume that people don't want to give, right? He's never asked me for $1. And I knew I was coming here for fundraising. I said, well, I got to make sure I give I got to make sure I'm sending a donation in before I start talking to everybody else about it. So, and so it's just important to talk about the impact. But your family, your friends, the thing is this, they want to figure out how can they continue to support you. And if this is the organization that has given you, a little bit more dignity, that has helped lift the burden off of you, that has helped you live a much healthier life yourself, they want to make that investment. So don't deny them that investment by not asking them. And I will be honest with you. There are times where people will not give simply because they want to know if you're going to ask. And in my world, they will tell us as electeds, if you've never asked me for money, you're not working. And so I come from a nonprofit world, and there's 3 things that everybody can always give. You all are here right now giving your time, right? You're going to be giving your time. You're going to be making phone calls. You may be, licking envelopes and sending those envelopes off for every pledge that goes out there, and you need that, right? And some of you are using your talents, right? Some of you may be able to sing, dance, or do art, bringing awareness to this issue, and that helps bring people into the fold. But right now, we're focusing on that last T, which is treasure, right? Everybody has, something to give. I always tell everybody, not every role is for everyone, but there's always a role for someone when it comes down to pushing prosperity and focusing on our goals and our vision. And so I may not be able to give $100, but I may be able to give $2. And the other thing is that a lot of the times, people may not have $100 today, right? And you know who you're going to be calling. You know they may not have $100. But you know what? Instead of asking them for $100, ask them for $10 a month. Not only did you raise $100, but now you've raised $120, right? And sometimes it is better to ask for a small, reoccurring gift. Now, we want these matching dollars. But sometimes it is best to ask for a small, reoccurring gift than a big gift so those dollars continuously come in. And some, again, I may say, you know what, I can't give $250. But if I can give $25 every month, it's more than $250. So don't be afraid to ask for smaller, reoccurring donations. Now, we want to make sure that we can get the match, and that's extremely important. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because as people who want to be involved in this campaign, I want you to understand that fundraising doesn't just end in the next week. It's an ongoing battle. And if you can do it in small amounts every single day, and when I say small amounts every single day, when I first ran for county executive, I was stuck in a 5x8 room making phone calls 8 hours a day for the first 60 days of the race. Never knocking on doors, never talking to a volunteer, never talking to voters, but just fundraising. And I didn't know I could do this, but within 60 days, we raised $225,000. Right? Didn't think I could do that. But it let me know that if you hunker down, you make the ask, and there are people who may say no to you, and then all of a sudden, a week later, you may see a check come in. They see you doing the work. All of a sudden, you get that phone call. 2 days later, friendship circle pops up on my Facebook. And now I'm maybe just a little bit more moved to give. So don't be afraid to continue to make the calls.
I think it's also important, like with Maya, we share so much on our social media about Friendship Circle. Every time she comes here, every program she does here, like the dance that's coming up Tuesday, we share all that, so I have no problem asking every one of those people, because if you like it on my Facebook and on Instagram, if you like it, support it.
Absolutely. And if you have, like if she has that, find the most engaging post that she's had, reshare it with your ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go through them.
So how does it feel to be a first-time donor?
It feels good. It's first time donor, won't be my last. It will not be my last. But I knew that if I gave, it would be matched. So that created the urgency. So that's going to help with the urgency for people to give. Deadlines help with that. So.
And for the person who gives $10, the effective amount is 20.
20, yes,
20
absolutely.
Is effective is 40, and 100 is 200. So.
I also wanted to the bystander effect. So people are seeing that we are getting closer to our goal. They may not give. They think other people are going to give. It's going to keep growing. So I think there's an importance to emphasizing the need that's still there throughout the week, rather than, of course, it's awesome to share our positive growth stories, but really hammering it down with our networks, people that we're reaching out to, that there is still a need. We may be raising money, we may be getting closer to reaching our goals, but
We're never close to reaching our goals when it comes to fundraising.
on the inside.
No, don't get. Well, that's extremely important. I'm glad you brought that up because you want to celebrate your wins.
Right.
And because that's the motivate. Because when you don't celebrate your wins in anything, it's hard to find that motivation. So you definitely want to make sure that you celebrate all of your small wins. I've learned that being in government. We rarely get all the good credit, but we hear all the bad stuff. So when we do good stuff, you have to celebrate that. Because if I just focus on what I'm hearing, I would never want to do this job again.
And I like that we were talking about, Maya's constantly, she's a Make-A-Wish child, and so she you like to donate, yeah. She's a huge advocate for donating and doing all these things. And I think when you involve the child
Yes.
in any of this, she was in the hospital and she saw and she asked for a Band-Aid that would make her happy.
Oh.
And because it was during COVID, they didn't have any because they were spending all their money on new stethoscopes and everything else. So she saw the problem and she raised, how many was it? Over 10,000 Band-Aids and donated them to Children's Hospital. So it's like if you get the child involved and you see, because she notices things. What makes you happy? Right. Lemonade stands during the summer. Do the charity with that. I just wanted to share that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can tell she's excited about it too. So.
How would you handle if the person on the other end of the phone says, well, I gave for the bike ride fundraiser or some other fundraiser or friendship circle, and you're calling about this fundraiser? So,
Good. Just because I give doesn't mean I don't want to give again. And you may not know exactly what it was, but if I'm not mistaken, that was almost 6 months ago now. So it's time for another ask. You know, it is time. And so, and I will tell you that there are some times when you get a little fatigued yourself and you're like, oh man, I gotta call this person again. But if you think about it, they're expecting your call. When people give, they start to get phone calls about giving.
Right.
And so they know that those calls are going to come. Now, I may say, hey, I gave to the bike ride. And you can say, and we truly appreciate it. Right? Is there a way that you can give again? Can you give again? Now, if they feel like they gave a huge amount, then let's say, then that's that moment when you say, okay, what can you give this time around? And just so you are aware, if you give big now, it would not only get matched, but we may be able to bump you down the line for a couple more months before we actually You're not gonna not call again, but I can probably add another 2 months on when I won't call.
Making light of the situation sometimes is helpful because it breaks the awkwardness and yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now that I realize you're such a good fundraiser, I'm going to call you.
Masterclass in fundraising, aren't they?
That's because they forced me to do it a lot.
They lock you up in a 5x7 room.
Yes, yes. And so for me, the way that, so we have accountability partners when we're doing political fundraising. And so I usually have my campaign manager in the room with me, but if they can't physically be with me, I am literally in front of a computer on a Zoom call. And they just hear my whole conversation and they take the notes and all of that. And then that's their way of holding me accountable. And I would say that, you may say, you know what? I'm going to take 2 hours out of my time and I'm going to make these calls. In 2 hours, you can make a lot of calls. Don't get me wrong. But it may be best for you to wait, instead of you doing 2 hours and making 30 calls or 15 calls, how about make 5 to 10 calls a day versus trying to take out that much time? Because it'll make things much easier as well.